Hey everyone, the new version of DAX Studio, which is 2.16, was released today, and there are a lot of quality of life improvements and minor bug fixes in this version. And if you want to just simply read what all has been released, you can simply go to this link and just read in your free time. But in this video, I am just going to cover the main features and the improvements that I think were really important. And so let's get started. Alright, so now I am in the Power BI file and let's open DAX Studio, which is the latest version. So the first improvement that I want to show you is if you right click on a table's name, and you can see that the new option, which is preview data, is now available in the right click option. And if I click on preview data, you can see that it simply runs us evaluate top and code, which shows us the top 500 values of a given table, which was not available in the previous version of DAX Studio. So if I go back to the version which was 2.15, and if I right click on the table, you can see that it was not available. Now let's move on to the next thing, which was actually a bug in the previous version of DAX Studio. So if I go to the Power BI file, and if I change the name of any table, so let's say I change the table to my name, which is Antriksh, and if I go back to the previous version of DAX Studio and write evaluate Antriksh, and let's turn on the server timings trace and let's wait for it to complete. So if I press F5, you will see that my name is not visible anywhere in the xmSQL code. Instead, it shows table, row number, table color, and table is shown everywhere. But this is fixed in the new version of DAX Studio. So let's go back to the version 2.16, and if I connect to server timings trace, and let's make sure that we are connected to the Power BI model, and let's try once again. So if I press F5, you can see that my name is now visible as a table name for each line and each column that we are selecting in the xmSQL code. So this was a very important fix from the previous version of DAX Studio. So let's move on to the next one. And in the latest version of DAX Studio, now the tooltip feature is available for the keyword arguments that we have in the DAX. So in the previous version, evaluate, define, column, table, and the measure keywords didn't have a tooltip for themselves. So if I hover over them, you can see that we get a tooltip that will guide us to the dax.guide website. But the tooltip was available for the functions that are not the keywords. So if I hover over calculate, it shows the tooltip for calculate. And if I copy and paste it in the version 2.15, you can see that for evaluate, define, and column, table, and measure, we are not getting any tooltip, but for calculate we are getting that. So this was one of the another fix that has been made available in the latest version of DAX Studio. The next feature that is worth talking about is the debug commas feature. So in the previous version of DAX Studio, for debugging the code, what I would usually do is I would comment out the codes that I have on the screen line by line, and then I would press F5 so that I can see what each measure is actually returning. So the problem was that if I actually comment out the last line of the code, and if I press F5 without paying attention to the structure of the code, you can see that I get an error. The reason is that I have a trailing comma at the end of the code. So what I generally used to do is I used to remove that comma and then press F5. But that would actually mean that I would have to introduce it once again once I would uncomment the following line of the code. But in this version of DAX Studio, what you can simply do is just click on the debug commas option, and it will simply move the commas from the end of the line to the start of the next line. And if you want this feature, what you can do is just simply go to the files and go to the options. In the advanced tab, you just simply need to click show debug comma, and let's see if we now comment out this line, if we get the error or not. So if I press F5, you can see that I get the result. And similarly, I can step into one by one, debug, comment any line, uncomment any line, and then I can simply run my code, and I will not have to worry about the position or the placement of the comma. The next fix is a very small one, but it is very important one. So in the new version, in the metadata pane, you can see the name of the model or the name of the Power BI file. But in the previous version, it used to show a complex string. So if I go back to version 2.15, you can see that I get a number that doesn't make any sense. So this has been fixed in the new version, so to show the name of the Power BI file. Now let's look at a feature that was available in the version 2.14, but somehow it got removed in the version 2.15 and has been made available in the latest version. So if you write a code like the following one, which is calculate table values dates date, and then I am going to use the expanded table to only get the dates that has a corresponding sales in the sales table. In my dates table I have somewhere around 2000 rows, but only around 1000 of those dates have any corresponding sales in the sales table. So if I run this code, you will notice that it only shows us 2 lines of code, but the problem is that the behavior of this code is that it is executed in a batch mode or a batch statement, but the option for the batch statement is not visible in the version which is 2.15, but this has been fixed in the version 2.16, and it was also in the version 2.14. So if I paste the code here and if I press F5, let's go to server timings tab, and what I need to do is, you can notice that in the version 2.15 we didn't have the layout tab, but in 2.16 we get the layout tab. And what I can do is I can I can click on the batch statement, and you can see that I now have a different xmSQL code which was not available in the previous version. So if you are into optimization, this one could be very important for understanding how the code is being executed. Also, you can see that in the layout tab we have different options available, which is right layout, which is the current setup, and if you want that the xmSQL code pane should appear below the code of the summary xmSQL, so you can just simply click on the bottom layout and it will change the way the windows appear. Moving on to the next one, which is regarding the query builder pane. So if you haven't used a query builder pane before, it basically allows you to build the queries inside DAX Studio without having the need to write the code manually. So if you have some problems in writing the code that is actually generated by Power BI behind the scenes, you can use the query builder pane to write that code automatically for you. So let's see what are the changes that has been introduced in this version. So if I drag the brand column and the color column, and let's bring total sales in the filters pane, you can see that now we have the order by option available. Previously the order by pane was not there. Also in the new version, you can see that we can now simply use this clear query button to clear everything from the query builder pane. So if I click on this button, it now clears everything from the query builder, column measures and the filters pane, but it hasn't removed anything from the order by pane. Maybe that will be fixed in the upcoming version of the DAX Studio. So another thing that has been introduced is, if you use any column which has a sort by column property activated, for example the month column in my date table is being sorted by the month number, and if I drag the month column into the column field, you can see that the month number is now also included in the order by clause. So this is a great feature. And if you want to sort the month numbers, first of all let's run this query. So if you want to sort the month numbers, you can do that by pressing this option. So if I press it once, you can see that it is sorted in the ascending order. If I press it again it is sorted in the descending order, and the third option looks like it says no sorting. So if I run this one, it is sorted in the alphabetical order. So these are the options that are now available for you. The next option that has been introduced in the query builder pane is that of auto generate. So first of all, let's click on edit query to see the code that has been generated behind the scene by the query builder. And if I bring any other column into the column and the measures pane, you can see that that column doesn't appear inside the summarized columns. So to be able to see the code in the real time, what we can do is simply click on the auto generate query, and now you can see that it has been updated to reflect that Asia season column. And if I bring another column, you will see that it is now being shown in the summarized column, and you can keep on adding, and you can also add several measures as well. So let's bring different measure, and you can see that they are being added into the code that is being generated by the query builder. That was all for this video, and I hope you have enjoyed the bug fixes and the quality of life improvements that have been done in the DAX Studio. And I will see you next time. Until then, have a great day.